If you've ever taken a leap your family disapproved of, you know the feeling, that blend of shame and stubborn pride that comes with being mocked by the people who are supposed to believe in you. That was me, 14 months ago. I was 27, burned out, and barely surviving another night shift at the local warehouse. The pay was crap, the hours were worse, and every day felt like another layer of myself peeled away and left on the concrete floor. But I had a plan. I'd been tinkering with leathercraft since college, wallets, belts, key fobs. At first, it was just a hobby. But I started selling a few pieces online. Then more. Then enough to make me wonder if maybe, just maybe, I didn't have to rot under fluorescent lights for the rest of my life. So I quit. I gave 2 weeks' notice, walked out with nothing but my tools, a little savings, and a dream so fragile it felt like paper in a thunderstorm. I told my parents and brother over Sunday dinner. Big mistake. You did what? My dad, Martin, nearly choked on his beer. Denise, my mom, laughed like I told a joke. Avery, come on. You're not a businessman. You hate math. And then came Rhett. My older brother. Mr. MBA, Mr. Midsize SUV, Mr. Dad's favorite since birth. He smirked. So, leather? That's your big play? It's not just leather, I said. It's niche. Custom. I've already built some traffic online. I have a plan. Right, he said. Until your plan needs rent money. They all laughed. I didn't. I just nodded, finished my food, and left early. For the next year, I barely spoke to them. Not out of spite, but survival. Because when you're barely scraping by, eating ramen and working 16-hour days building a website and stitching wallets until your fingers bleed, the last thing you need is voices in your head saying, "You're not good enough." So I blocked them out. And I worked. I worked through weekends. I worked while sick. I worked when the orders didn't come. I worked when they did, so many, I couldn't keep up. I reinvested every dollar. I slept 4 hours a night. I learned what it meant to build something with your own hands and have no one clap for it but yourself. Then came the morning everything changed. I logged into my dashboard and saw it. 6 figures. I'd passed $100,000 in revenue. 12 months. One guy. It was one dream everyone laughed at. I stared at the screen and just sat there. Not smiling. Not celebrating. Just breathing. Because that moment wasn't about money. It was about proof. And wouldn't you know it? That's precisely when the calls started coming in. It started with a text from my mom. Hey, sweetie, just checking in. How's your little shop doing? Little shop. I hadn't heard from her in 6 months. Not after I sent a polite but very clear, "Please stop belittling my work" email. She never responded to that one. Now suddenly she wanted to check in. I left it on read. 2 days later, a call from Dad. Straight to voicemail. Then a text. "Your mother says you're doing well. Maybe we can grab lunch sometime, just us guys." That might have meant something if the last time we got lunch, he hadn't spent 90% of it talking about how Rhett was crushing it at the firm, and 10% mocking my crafty side hustle. But the real kicker came from Rhett. He sent a message through LinkedIn, of all places. "Hey man. Been watching your business take off, very cool. Had an idea I wanted to run by you. Hit me up?" I clicked through to his profile. Updated job title, Venture Strategist. Of course. I didn't respond. So he tried again. "Not sure if you're ignoring me or just swamped, but seriously, I think there's a way we could scale what you're doing. Monetize the traffic. Maybe even automate the builds." Automate the builds. The man wanted to turn hand-stitched leather into a Shopify dropship pipeline. But what got me? He started name-dropping brands. "What you've got reminds me of Huckberry meets Shinola. There's a lot of space there if we move quickly. Could pitch it to some VCs I know." I laughed. Out loud. This man, who once told me I'd be crawling back for a job, now wanted to partner with me. On a brand he hadn't touched. A risk he hadn't taken. A sacrifice he hadn't made. I ignored him. Until a week later, when the group chat came back to life. Denise Collins added you to family chat. Then, Mom, we should all talk. I think it's time to heal. Maybe even do something together. We're proud of you, Avery. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about healing. This wasn't about me. This was about money. They smelled success and wanted a seat at a table they refused to help build. And now that the dishes were hot and the lights were on, they were lining up with napkins around their necks. I didn't leave the chat. But I didn't respond either. Because I already knew what was coming next. They weren't done. Not by a long shot. A week after the group chat invite, I got the first real guilt trip. It came wrapped in nostalgia and passive aggression, my mother's specialty. You know, we gave you everything growing up. Piano lessons, braces, roof over your head. Not many kids get that kind of support. Just something to think about. Just something to think about. Like I owed them royalties on my ambition. I didn't respond. So she tried again. I told my friend Nancy about your business, and she said you should give back. Family first, right? Maybe help Rhett out, he's been having a tough time lately. Help Rhett? The same brother who once laughed in my face when I brought my first batch of handmade wallets to a holiday dinner? The guy who asked, "How much are you selling these for, like $5? Now he was struggling, and I was supposed to give back? That's when the messaging shifted from curiosity to pressure. My dad got in on it. You've been real quiet lately, son. Don't let success change you. This family's always had your back. Always. Where was that backing when I maxed out my credit card to buy tools? Where was the support when I ate frozen rice and eggs for 2 months straight just to keep the website online? Then came the big question. A message from Rhett. Let's be honest, man. You wouldn't be where you are without the stability this family gave you. You're making real money now, and we're just asking for a chance to be part of it. What if I came on as a business dev lead? 10% equity. No salary, just upside. 10% equity. In a company I built from scratch. In my name. From a guy who laughed at me while I shipped my first 30 orders out of a one-bedroom apartment using duct-taped boxes and borrowed stamps. I didn't just ignore it this time. I replied. Rhett, you didn't believe in me. You didn't support me. You mocked me. And now that there's money on the table, you think you're entitled to a slice? This isn't a family bake sale. This is the business I bled for. And no, you're not getting a piece of it. Avery. I hit send. Then I left the group chat. Because I knew what would come next. Not understanding. Not apology. Anger. When I left the group chat, I expected backlash. What I didn't expect was the campaign. It started subtly, just ripples. Comments on Facebook under old family photos suddenly disappearing. Birthday reminders from my parents vanishing from my feed. 1 or 2 mutual friends from town quietly unfriended me. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. Then I got the call from my old high school buddy, Damien. Hey man. Everything cool between you and your folks? Your mom was at the church market talking about how money changes people. Said you'd gone off and forgot who helped you get there. I had to laugh. Because here's the thing. My family didn't help me get anywhere. They gave me a roof, sure. And some food. But support? Encouragement? Belief? No. They mocked me. Silence. Shrugs. Now that I was making more than both my parents and brother combined, suddenly they were rewriting the past to cast themselves as investors. The next wave came fast. Lena, my mom's friend who also happens to be the town's unofficial gossip courier, made a post that was clearly about me. It's always sad when people get a little money and forget the ones who raised them. But I guess character doesn't come with income. Commenters ate it up. Some of them tagged my mom. One even mentioned Rhett by name. The damage was subtle but deliberate. That week, I noticed 2 bulk orders were cancelled. Both had local shipping addresses. One included a note. Unprofessional business practices. Hope you remember where you came from. That one hurt. Not because it affected my income, I was doing fine. It hurt because it showed me just how far they were willing to go. They weren't just upset. They were offended that I'd succeeded without needing them. And now that they couldn't profit off me? They'd rather see me crumble. It was like they believed I owed them access to my success as some kind of lifelong subscription. The "we changed your diapers, so give us a cut" mentality. But I wasn't playing along. So I did the only thing that made sense. I told the truth. I wrote a post, short, calm, factual. Starting my business was the hardest thing I've ever done. I received zero support from my family while I built it. Now that it's successful, I've been called ungrateful for not handing over pieces of it. This isn't about ego or revenge. It's about boundaries. If you're only proud of someone when they're profitable, you were never proud at all. I didn't tag anyone. Didn't need to. It spread faster than I expected. Comments. Shares. Messages from people who'd watched it happen. Who remembered the snide remarks my parents made at PTA meetings? Who saw how Rhett bragged about me when it was convenient, and laughed behind my back when it wasn't? The narrative was shifting. Not because I yelled louder, but because I stood still while the truth revealed itself. And for the first time, they couldn't control it. After the post went viral in our little corner of the internet, things went quiet. Not peaceful, quiet. The kind of quiet that settles before a storm, when everyone's bracing for what happens next. I lost a few more local customers. People I'd grown up around. Folks who used to shake my hand in hardware stores now looked through me like I was a stranger. But I gained more, too. Out-of-town orders flooded in. People started sharing my work with captions like, "Support small businesses." Especially the ones that had to build without backup. I even got a few DMs from strangers. "Read your post. Been there. Stay strong. My parents act like my paycheck is their retirement fund. You're not alone." I wasn't alone. But I was angry. And not just because of the smear campaign. Because something still didn't add up. One afternoon, I got an email from a name I hadn't seen in years, Mrs. Whitaker, my old high school accounting teacher. She'd been following my business journey online. Said she was proud. Said she had something I should know. "You might want to check who signed your student loan cosign forms back in 2013. I remembered something Rhett said during your senior week that didn't sit right. I kept a copy of the original FAFSA printout you submitted in class. Your father didn't sign it. Rhett did." That sent a chill down my spine. I hadn't looked at those forms in years. I'd always believed my dad helped me get those loans. That even if he wasn't emotionally supportive, he at least gave me the financial cosign I needed to get through community college. But no. It was Rhett. And worse, he'd forged our dad's signature. At the time, it probably felt like a dumb prank. Maybe he thought he was helping. Maybe he wanted leverage. But it was fraud. And suddenly, all those comments, about how I owed the family, how Rhett got me through school, took on a different weight. He knew. He knew what he'd done. And he'd been sitting on it for years like it was a bargaining chip. A secret IOU. So when I made it, when I finally climbed out of the pit, he didn't come to celebrate. He came to collect. That was the moment everything shifted. Because now I wasn't just dealing with emotional manipulation. I was dealing with intentional sabotage. They weren't clueless. They weren't clumsy. They were calculated. Rhett had laid a trap in 2013 and waited nearly a decade for it to pay off. And when I didn't give him what he thought he was owed, he launched a smear campaign to make me look like the villain. So I took it one step further. I contacted a lawyer. Not to press charges. Not yet. But to document everything, messages, emails, screenshots. A paper trail of entitlement and deception. And I started preparing my next move. Because people like Rhett don't stop when you say no. They stop when you say one more word, and I'll say everything. It happened at a charity gala. Of all places. An annual fundraiser for a local arts nonprofit where Rhett liked to show face. Polished shoes, tight haircut, the whole community leader cosplay. I wasn't invited. But I was in town that weekend to meet a client, and decided to stop by the venue to drop off a donated item for the silent auction, a custom leather journal I'd crafted by hand. I was dressed casually. Unassuming. Just trying to do something decent. I never expected to be ambushed. But sure enough, as I walked toward the front desk, I heard it. Guess who decided to show up now that he's famous? I turned. Rhett. He held a drink in one hand, and that smug, too-white smile was plastered across his face like nothing had happened. He didn't wait for me to reply. Just walked straight over and said, loud enough for people around us to hear. Everyone, meet my brother Avery. He runs a little Etsy thing that blew up. Took some family help along the way, never says thank you, but hey, he's got fans now. I saw 3 heads turn. One of them was the executive director of the nonprofit. My jaw was clenched. Not because I was embarrassed, but because I realized exactly what this was. He wasn't just trying to humiliate me. He was trying to discredit me publicly. Make himself the humble, selfless older brother who helped launch my career and never got so much as a thank you. It was the long con. The emotional grift he'd been building since that forged FAFSA form. This was his moment. I looked around. People were watching. So I stepped forward. Calm. Controlled. I do remember to say thank you, Rhett, I said. I thanked every customer. Every supplier. Every person who helped me without strings attached. His smirk wavered. I went on. But since we're sharing tonight, let's talk about help. Now, I had everyone's attention. You forged my FAFSA signature in 2013. I've confirmed it. You used Dad's name and filed the paperwork without telling me. And you've been holding that over my head like I owed you something. The room shifted. You could feel the tension spike. A waiter stopped pouring a drink mid-air. I kept going. You didn't help me. You set me up. Hoping that one day, when I got somewhere, you could cash in. Rhett's face went pale. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. I pulled out my phone. Opened the scanned document from Mrs. Whitaker. Held it up. Verified. Signed under pretenses. I could press charges. But I won't, because I don't need revenge. I just want you to stay the hell out of my business. No one said a word. Not Rhett. Not the director. Not the woman next to him who'd been giggling 2 minutes earlier. I turned to leave. But before I did, I looked back. And for the record? I said. It's not an Etsy shop. It's a full-scale company. And it succeeded because I did it without you. Then I walked out. My hands were steady. My breath was even. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't care who was watching. Let them see. Let them all see. The fallout was fast. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just quiet devastation. Like a house with bad wiring finally shorting out in the middle of the night. 2 days after the gala, I got a call from Lena, the same family friend who'd helped spread rumors just weeks before. Her voice was low. Hesitant. Avery, I didn't know. About the FAFSA thing. About everything. I thought Rhett was just being the big brother, you know? Helping out. I didn't say much. Just let her talk. She said Rhett had been sidelined from a nonprofit board seat he'd been eyeing for months. That donors had pulled back. That people were asking questions. Someone had uploaded a clip of the confrontation. It wasn't crystal clear, but the audio was sharp. You forged my FAFSA. That was the phrase that stuck. It circulated in local business circles. Then school boards. Then the community Facebook groups. It was like everyone realized at once that the golden sun they'd been cheering for had a crack in his halo. My parents? Silent. For about a week. Then the email came. From my mom. You didn't have to embarrass him like that. You know how sensitive he is. This family doesn't air dirty laundry in front of strangers. That's not how we were raised. That line hit me like a slap. We don't air dirty laundry? They'd aired mine for years. Told friends I was lost. Joked about my little crafts. Behind my back. Used my silence as a PR tool while they painted themselves as the backbone of my success. Now that I'd finally spoken up, I was the problem. I didn't reply. Instead, I archived the message. Sat back in my chair. Closed my eyes. And felt something strange. Relief. Because there it was, the final proof I needed. They didn't want reconciliation. They wanted silence. Obedience. A son who succeeded just enough to reflect well on them, but never enough to stand on his own. A son who'd feel guilty for drawing a boundary. A son who'd confuse tolerance with loyalty. But I wasn't that son anymore. And the best part? I didn't have to explain it. I didn't have to fight anymore. They were doing that all by themselves. I heard through mutual connections that my dad had blamed the FAFSA forgery entirely on Rhett. That Rhett, in turn, told someone at his firm that his parents pressured him into it. That's a classic Collins tradition. When the truth burns, pass the matches. Me? I stayed out of it. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the problem solver. I wasn't the fixer. I wasn't the one stepping into the middle to patch things up for people who never learned how to clean up after themselves. I was just gone. And it felt good. The funny thing about cutting ties is that people always expect a big scene. A shouting match. A meltdown. A slammed door. But when I walked away from my family, it didn't sound like anything. It felt like stepping into a room where the air was finally clean. No tension. No second guessing. No waiting for the next snide comment disguised as advice. Just quiet. I never made an announcement. Never wrote a final post. Never hit send on the long, perfectly crafted goodbye message I once thought they deserved. Because I realized they didn't deserve anything. Closure isn't something you give people who used you. It's something you take for yourself. I moved forward. Kept growing the business. Hired 2 part-timers. Opened a small studio in the east side of Tulsa with big windows and one rule: no one here has to pretend. Customers came and went. The press picked up one of my newer designs. A blog wrote a piece titled, "From Rejection to Resilience, the Story Behind Collins Leather." That last part made me pause. Collins. Still my last name. Still tied to a legacy I didn't choose. But now it was mine. Because they didn't get to keep it. They didn't get to ride the coattails of a name they tried to shame. One night, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Handwritten. It was from my dad. I recognized the heavy block lettering immediately. The note was short. 2 sentences. Families fall apart. That doesn't mean you stop being one. You know where to find us. I stared at it for a while. Then folded it. Slipped it into a drawer. Not out of sentiment. Out of clarity. Because maybe one day, years from now, I'll open that drawer again. And remember the moment I realized something important. Just because someone shares your blood doesn't mean they get to claim your life.